I mourned my first queer death in a tattoo shop. There's a scarlet-haired rock and roll vixen on my back. She peeks out my shirt collar and runs right of my spine down towards my hip. I clenched my fists and my jaw and my butt cheeks for nearly 8 hours before the tattooist was finished. She attracts a lot of attention, my tattoo, especially from biker types who don't have any qualms about touching a perfect stranger's back. Nice ink, they say. Some have even gone as far as sliding my tank top to the side to get a better look. So when they ask, "What made you get that?" I feel a certain vindication when I tell them, it's a memorial tattoo for a lover. She was 19 when she died. The conversation usually ends there. If I were to continue, I'd say I picked up a phone call from a friend sometime in late fall of '93. This friend and I hadn't spoken since high school, and she didn't waste words asking how I was doing all the way out in Vancouver. Her news was swift as a kick. Val had overdosed in her parents' rec room. The immediate family-only service had already passed. Her obituary had already run in the Niagara local papers. But I didn't even know she moved home, was the only response I could come up with. It was true. I hadn't seen her for at least a year. Well, my friend sighed, sounding impatient, she came back to get clean. I went to my old dealer's house, the one with the Confederate flag in the bay window and the stupid smoke that couldn't find its way out of the living room, and I told everyone there. Some lay unmoving on the many ragged sofas jammed into the tiny apartment and slept through the news. Some had never met Val and shrugged in careless sympathy. I stuck around for the 3 or 4 people who called Val a friend, despite the fact that the secondhand freebase coke was making me both ill and tempting me off the wagon. We told stories. Remember how we used to cut class and go swim in the gorge? Remember tobogganing and garbage bag sleds at Sugar Bowl Park? Remember our secret drinking spot near Devil's Hole? How we managed not to kill ourselves climbing drunk to those caves. After we exhausted the tales of high school, the road trip sagas began. How Val could neither read a map nor stay awake at the wheel, but she could find a radio station even in the butt-fuck nowhere prairies where nothing but tall grass lives, and she knew the words to every classic rock song from Abracadabra to Ziggy Stardust. From these stories, I omitted the part when Val tucked my hands under her bomber jacket, held them against her bare belly until my fingers were warm in the November night. Our first kiss we had ducked between 2 cars in a bowling alley parking lot. I used to chew my lips raw, daydreaming about when we'd kiss again. I struck these tales from our impromptu memorial because Val and I were the only ones who knew. Now that she was dead, I guess I was the only one. The lack of out funerals has been going on for a long time, long before I lost a loved one. In 1987, Cleve Jones and a group of San Franciscan activists began the first AIDS memorial quilt, an enormous and ever-growing observance of the lives of people who have died of AIDS-related causes. In the late 80s, most of the people who died with AIDS, or more to the point, the gay men who died with AIDS, were denied a memorial service because funeral homes and cemeteries refused to take the remains. The quilt was one of the only places where surviving loved ones could formally remember and grieve. If you visit aidsquilt.org, you'll notice the Names Project Foundation has honorably chosen to use the site as an educational tool and an affirming celebration of life. Click the Make a Panel button, and you can read over encouraging guidelines to submitting to the quilt. Everything from hand embroidery to spray paint art is welcome. Only one specific requirement is the dimensions, 6 feet by 3 feet. If you didn't know the history, it might not occur to you that this is the size of a human grave. Heed to the time when we had to bury our dead in a cloth coffin of our own creation. As a kinky, genderqueer femme with a big mouth and what you could call a rather enterprising pussy, I am accustomed to having to create my own family, my home, my community, and even myself. I am proud of the keen ability queer folks have to create personal, joyful somethings out of the nothings we're all too often offered. I don't know, however, if I could be proud that we've had to make our own coffins. Make 2 lists. One of queers you've known who have died. Another of queer funerals you've attended. How do they compare? My first list is a whole lot longer. What I've learned about queer funerals are, they don't exist. Worst case scenario, we are forced back into the closet at our funerals. At best, our deaths become political, platforms for public education and human rights. They become measures of the work that still needs to be done. And once again, I am proud to be part of a community that in the face of death rolls up its sleeves and says, we got a job to do. At the same time, at risk of sounding enfeebled, it's just not fair. How truly sad is it to not be afforded a funeral? So I have no expert advice on how to bury our dead because I've never actually done it. But that doesn't mean I haven't imagined an old country frame house filled with queer folk who have gathered to properly grieve. Maybe you can imagine it too. Picture Mac jackets and faux fur and good leather hung in the mudroom. You come through the back door because family never comes through the front, and you are family. You can hold your partner's hand the whole time until your fingers grow numb if you want to. The stories shared are uncensored, including the ones that take place in bathroom stalls or parked cars. Photos taken at Pride Parade or Fairy Camp or the bar make their rounds around the room. When you're handed the photo of yourself, you, with the loved one you came to mourn, stare down at it until the colors start to blur and you find yourself whispering, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And when you're ready, go bravely into the living room where the casket lay. Take as long as you need. This moment is yours to say goodbye. Imagine this last look. Imagine hair and hands, eyelashes and lower lip, and all the memories that a body holds to it. Our lives are worth the fruit baskets and the raisin cake. We are worth calla lilies and pink roses. We are worth stone and scattering ashes, hymn and song, wine and ritual. Surely we've all earned the hours of storytelling, and most certainly our lives are worth the tears. Thank you.